last Osun State governorship election, you are one of the fathers of the SDP in Osun State. Can you give us an insight as to what really happened?
Anybody who monitored our campaign will know that the APC was the real focus of our campaign. They were the main target of our attacks.
Okay.
The PDP candidate said he didn't need SDP. So we had no choice. One side said they didn't need us, the other side agreed to our term, and it is on record. You must have a society for you to have a state.
But as someone who has a glimpse into the dialectics and the modus operandi of the establishment, do you think they realize this fact that you're pointing out to us now?
They do, and I will illustrate for you.
Please, sir.
In 1999, the establishment was afraid that the Southwest might not participate in the transition program, and they might opt out. And they really believe that having the best president that we never had from the Southwest, having the president who won the freest and fairest election dead, they had to do something for the Southwest. So when they were registering parties, they bent over backwards and registered AD, even though it didn't meet
the criteria.
And they decided they needed a Southwestern person. And they were looking for a Southwesterner that would be a Nigerian. They were looking for a Southwesterner that would have no grudge or vengeance against the establishment. They were looking for a Southwesterner that would not be easily overthrown by the military. That was what they wanted there. And they got one.
Yes.
So they know when they are near the precipice. When President Obasanjo finished, I think initially he wanted it to be succeeded by a Southerner.
By Southerner.
And
from many of the other regions.
From the south. Odili, or Namani, or Duke, so on. But he saw the reality, or the establishment alerted him to the reality of an alternation or a rotation between the north and the south, or the south and the north. And so he picked on Yar'Adua, who was not interested. That's the way establishment works. They know when their own interest becomes threatened. It's not that Jonathan didn't perform well, but they thought he has spent 2 years that belonged to the North, Yar'Adua's North. And that 4 years was their own. So if he's going to have another 4 years,
10.
That's 10. And how would they be out of power for 10 years? So irrespective of political parties or even religion, they supported a northern return.
Please permit me to cut in. Still pursuing this concept of the establishment, who are the owners of the country, and that obtains everywhere in the world. And I'm still particular about finding out if they realize that they may have no state on their hand very soon. Yes, I do concede that they have gained ownership of the political process. They are firmly in control, no doubt about that. But the institutions which drives socioeconomic activities in a milieu, in a state, they seem to have lost control. A number of things that we would read in some fiction writings and laugh that, oh, it can only be fiction. They have happened repeatedly in the country, and I can give a long list of examples, which tends to show us that the establishment have lost control of the institutions across the board. And so the question that I'm asking is, have they realized, as the establishment in Nigeria realized, that owning control of the political process and not having control of the institutions which governs and drives the society is not in their interest? Because there are two arms that must work together.
Yes, I know. Whether they've learned or not, we'll see in the next 6 months. But there are signals they ought to have seen. First was the NSAS protest. Nobody in their widest imagination would have expected that the youth would band themselves together in such a civilized way, but very, very powerfully effective way to demonstrate. That would have indicated, or ought to have indicated to them, that there is a simmering, there is a whispering, what I call the low whispers going on in the country. The low whispers never come out on television or radio or in newspapers. But the people say it among themselves, in beer parlors, in their bedrooms, in their sitting rooms, in their societal town association.
Over time.
It goes there. It builds. As small talks, then it becomes bigger talks. It becomes farmer talks. And it's going on.
Like the Arab uprising.
Exactly. And it only needs one misbehavior to ignite it. I hope, and we will see if my hope is right, that they have seen it.
From the activities in the next few months in the political arena.
In the political arena.
Okay.
Because they should ask themselves, why will people do banditry the way it's been done, even in the Northwest? They should ask themselves that in the very seat of the caliphate, where would there be so much kidnapping, killings?
I think they have come to terms with this reality and they find it unpleasant. But my concern, which is the question I'm asking, is, are they rising up to challenge this onslaught?
Whether they have, we'll see in the action they take in preparation to 2023.
Okay.
My feeling is that they haven't, but I hope they will. Otherwise, if they have, they won't spend so much time generating heat without light on the Electoral Act and its amendment, and ignore, as it were, the desire of the people for a comprehensive rewriting of the Constitution. And the National Assembly would not have taken such obnoxious decision as they took on state police if they were at par with the society. So when you look at such actions, you see that those holding the leverage of power are more interested in what protects their hold of the power. So they spend so much time. Shall we transfer resource by electronic or not? I didn't care.
Still the political process.
Yes.
Rather than society's institution.
Yes. Whether to protect this human being. Do they need local government police? Do they need state police? Do they need the rearrangement of the country?
Do they need a single term?
If they were listening to the people, they would not say that the local government should be answerable to the center, because the people are asking for a tangling, that this stranglehold of 53% of Nigeria by the center, this stranglehold of 88 functions on the federal exclusive list should be watered down. But rather than doing that, you're saying that perhaps local government elections should be done by the center. No, they are not listening to the people.
Or maybe they want to bypass the stranglehold that state governors have on local government elections, which many of them have not been sincere.
Yes, whether they have been sincere.
Maybe that's a conundrum they're trying to solve.
Or not. People are beginning to ask this question. What is your business about who is a citizen of local government? If you have stayed 5 years in the local government and become a citizen, what is that to portend? Is it to allow the Nigerians from Niger Republic who cross across at will and occupy forests all over Nigeria to become citizen by just staying there? Why is citizenship of a local government important? What should interest anybody is citizenship of Nigeria. So when the National Assembly begins to talk about that, then you begin to think that they do not understand the enormity of the problem we are facing. We have on our hand a society that had lived together peacefully even before the white came, that can no longer cohere. And you are not bothered about that. What are the sources of friction? Can we remove it? Can we smoothen it? You're not talking about that.
Still dwelling on the presidential process, the electoral process as it relates to the presidency, because a lot of power oozes from that place. Some people have argued that a situation where we have presently, where the conventions are held at a central location, should be diffused, like we have in America, for instance, where presidents have to campaign all over the country. They have to hold town hall meetings all over the country because they know the conventions will be held in respective states. So the politics has been localized, but ours has been nationalized, as it were. And some people are saying perhaps we will have a better result if we don't pack all the delegates into one central location where they could be manipulated. If we're having state by state, maybe we could diffuse the establishment's hold.
No.
It will not happen.
You know, when they were amending the electorate, they said selection of candidate can be either by primaries, direct, indirect, or consensus.
Or consensus.
Now, direct primary means that they should go to all the wards, all the states, and do it. But from experience, the reality of politics in Nigeria, the state will declare in its Congress the favored candidate.
Really?
Anambra election, the APC had a direct primary. All the members were unable to vote. And I think that the APC candidate had about 168, either 168 or 268,000 votes. But when election came, he couldn't find 50,000 votes.
Yes, sir.
Coming up.
Still touching on the presidency, is it all just about the presidency? Why are we always so concerned about who occupies the position of the presidency when we should also be concerned about who directs the affairs of the judiciary, for instance? So where did the...
Where were the people? The SDP in Ekiti in 2018, the candidate had 28,000 votes in direct primary. At the election, they didn't have 1,000 votes. Because the primaries will be conducted by the state executive, working through the local executive and the ward executive of the party. It is true, 5 people will be sent from Abuja to superintend. If you come to Oyo State that has 33 local government, they will sit in Ibadan and be awaiting.
Because the elections hold simultaneously.
So they'll be expecting the results. We haven't established the fairness that you're talking about in US. It is, so what you're going to have at those primary elections are just like the local government election. The ruling party will win all the local government wards and chairmen. So it's still not the answer, to it, because those who are already ward executive, local government executive, and state executive are nominees of the establishment. So you cannot trust them to bring the right delegates or to vote for the appropriate candidate. That's why when they kept on arguing and they were asking, unless it's direct primary, a lot of people comment in this country, they don't appreciate the reality on the ground. That if you're going to do a primary in governorship election, they had one in Oyo State last time. Before the election, almost everybody thought that Tegbe would be or Niyi Akitola. But I gather a phone call changed the orders.
By the establishment.
The establishment. Because they hold the levers of the political structure. You've emphasized it. They don't hold the levers of the societal institution. They hold the levers of the political structure. So even a diffusing of voting, we still not get there.
We still not get there. Can a one-term solve this conundrum for us?
Yes.
Because we find out that the desire to have a second term makes even those who are visionary leaders to compromise on their values, on their vision, as well as their trajectory.
Yes, a one term will probably be more appropriate. Because what I have found from my own experience is that the last 2 years of the first term is really politics, no local government.
Yes.
It is hard to get back.
No governance happens.
No governance. Nothing in the overall interest of the society. It is what will make me come back.
But this one term has been proposed in the past. If I recall, late Chief Rotimi Williams was leader of the Patriots, and they first proposed it at the time. And over time, I think there's been about 4 or 5 instances where there's been some coalescing of like minds to propose it to the National Assembly and even to the nation. How come we don't have anyone who is anyone who is strong enough in the establishment queuing behind such a fantastic idea? I understand quite well that the establishment is refusing to embrace the idea of a one-term presidency or executive one-term regime because it suits them. How about that top 5%?
When we're able to work on that top 5, you know, take the universities. It used to be vice chancellors 2 terms.
True.
But at the time, it became obvious to the top 5 in the university system that it's better to have 1 term of 5 years.
5 years.
When they find people now dying, people being killed, people being morally assaulted, their dignity humiliated because of 2 terms.
Because of the second term.
Now it be 1 term. What they are bothered about now is the man living, trying to perpetuate himself by nominating the successor. But that's still better than he himself continuing. I believe that we can get that if we properly educate ourselves. The advantages. The first 6 months they get there, they don't do anything. By the 9th month of the first year, they start doing. They do 1 year, it's 1 year, 9 months. They begin to plan for the second term. When do we move this society forward? So it will be in the interest of all of us. So the man who knows his 1 time, he knows when he gets there, he has to start operating. He doesn't have the benefit of time. If he doesn't operate immediately, he cannot have the indulgence of waiting for 6-7 months before having a cabinet. His cabinet must have been ready.
So he has
his
to hit
policies
the
must have been ready. So he begins to act because he knows it's a race against time. And time is an important element in management, in leadership.
Still touching on the presidency, is it all just about the presidency? Why are we always so concerned about who occupies the position of the presidency when we should also be concerned about who directs the affairs of the judiciary, for instance? Because democracy is primarily about the rule of law.
You don't elect the judicial officers here. The president nominates them for the approval of the Senate. In a country where the National Assembly legislature is not a counterbalance on the executive, where the legislature sees the executive as Kabiesi, where they just rubber stamp what he does, so we must be interested in what that person does. The president is the Kabiesi over executive. Is the Kabiesi over legislature. Is the appointer and Kabiesi over judiciary. That's why everybody bothers about it. So if we are able to wield the power, if we are able to create a strong 36 federative unit or 6 regions, as some people are proposing, and we are able to reduce the power of the center back to the 22 functions that they used to have in the 1963 Constitution, then nobody will bother about who is president. And in the circumstance that we have now, if we have an ineffective man in Abuja, then for 4 or 8 years we're in trouble. But if you have 7 centers, at least all of them can be effective. It's not that all the premiers were effective in the First Republic, but some were effective, some was competing with some was struggling. So the healthy competition collectively moved Nigeria forward. So we have to diffuse power, delegate power, reduce the risk that this nation is taking because we have not matured to the level in which we can trust ourselves to take a good decision.
So you will support devolution of power?
Absolutely.
From the center?
Absolutely.
Would you also queue behind, and I think it's a level of frustration that has produced this kind of mindset, behind those who have advocated that what Nigeria needs in 2023 is not an election but a referendum?
Yes.